Dr. Brown Goes Video. In this fine Photoshop CS3 project, I'm going to demonstrate how to paint over time using the new animation timeline feature found, of course, in Photoshop CS3. I'm going to, of course, use the smudge tool over time. Now, let's get this project started. And let's move over here to the original image that has no timeline features. Right here. I've opened the image inside Photoshop. It is a standard flattened image, so it has a background as you see over here in the Layers palette. Now, I do not see any items down here in the Animation palette in the lower portion of my screen. How do I correct this fine problem? Why, that's easy. Go over here and double-click on the background image right here. Double-clicking on the image itself will bring up the new layer dialog. What we're going to do is rename this Layer 0. It's going to change it to something that is no longer a background image and thus unlock the image. Did you see that? When I clicked OK and named it Layer 0, it now has opened up the ability to adjust this inside of the Animation Timeline palette. As you see down here in the Animation palette, I select this icon right here to adjust the current time indicator. If I click and drag across this, you can see that I can move within frames and seconds within this particular image. And as you can see, the default within Photoshop for an open image is to set this up for exactly 10 seconds of image. I can adjust this, of course, and I should adjust this before I start any project by going to this particular menu pop-up item right here. Clicking on this, I can move over here and select Document Settings. This is a key thing that I do before I start any animation project. Selecting this allows you to adjust the duration right here, and in this case I'm going to adjust it to 5, and the frame rate. In this case I'm going to adjust this to 10, just like this. Then I'm going to click OK. Watch how the timeline palette changes here to reflect the changes I've just made. I now have 5 seconds displayed within my document. Now, how do I paint on this with the smudge tool? We're going to go up here to the Layers palette, down here to Video Layers, and create a new blank video layer. You'll of course see that Dr. Brown has created a keyboard shortcut for this because he uses it quite a bit. You can of course create keyboard shortcuts from the Edit menu and going down to Keyboard Shortcuts right here. Now back to our layer palette and our video layers. We're going to add a new blank video layer. Watch the Animation palette right there. A new layer has appeared here as well as over here in the Layers palette. This layer, of course, is stretched out over all of the frames in time, yet you paint into this layer frame by frame, and that's the key to remember. Wherever you move this slider right here, the current time indicator, wherever we move that, that means we're working on that frame of that particular layer. So if we paint into this frame, it will adjust and paint only onto that single frame within the video. That's a key element to remember when working on these projects. Now I'd like to start my painting here at 1 second into my image right here. So I'm going to place my current time indicator right there. Then, making sure that I have my layer 1 targeted over here in my Layers palette, because that's what I'm going to paint into. Then moving up here to my options bar at the top, I'm going to make sure that I sample all layers by checking this box. My current strength is set to 80. That's pretty good for using the smudge tool, which I've selected over here in the tool palette. Now all I have to do is click and drag on my image, just like any Photoshop image. And in this case, I'm going to click and drag several times because my animation appears as if the hair is growing all over the head. Now, of course, you could click and drag once and use that single frame as an animation, but in this case, I'm going to have multiple strokes seem to grow out of the hair. So this is my first frame. Now I want to create frames that continue after this. So I need to duplicate this frame. To see this more clearly, I'm going to toggle down here from within my Animation Timeline palette right here. Toggle this down so I can see the altered video layers. So, do you see right down here, this shaded box right here? This indicates that a single frame has been altered. We can prove this by selecting the current timeline indicator and moving it to the next frame, and there's nothing there. We're going to duplicate this first frame into this second frame so that we can continue our animation sequence. And this is the key to painting with Photoshop CS3 to create an animation, and it's duplicate frame. Right up here, down to video layers, we now can select duplicate frame. Why, cast your eyes down here. Did you see this? When he selected duplicate frame, it moved the current time indicator to the next frame and placed a duplicate. If I move back and forth, you can see I now have 2 frames which are identical. But the theory to animation is to alter the next frame to give the illusion of animation. So now, once again, on this second frame, I'm going to click and drag over the same strokes I made last time. Because I have a second copy there, I can just work right on top of them, thus giving the illusion of animation. So now if I move back and forth between this first frame and this second frame, I see a little bit of animation. Now once again, we would duplicate this last frame we just painted on. I'm going to use my quick keyboard shortcut to duplicate frame. Then I'm going to paint on the image once again to add to the animation. I continue on throughout my project, frame by frame, and paint on the image, or alter it in this way with the smudge tool. Okay, you have just seen an amazing way to animate a Photoshop image over time using the amazing animation timeline feature found in Photoshop CS3.